They haven't released a single detail about Dexter Resurrection Season 2 so far, no trailer, no cast announcements, no episode titles, and they haven't even confirmed that they will do a second season to begin with. So I got this idea to do something rather silly here. Why not try to predict the entire next season's main storyline, episode by episode, based on nothing but past season structures, character arcs, themes, and storylines? Who will be the big bad? How big of a role will the New York Ripper play? Who's going to die? And much more. Will this get ridiculous and oddly specific? Yes. Will my predictions be correct? No. However, I will try my best to keep this as grounded and believable while still feeling like Dexter as I possibly can.
You sure about that?
So first here I'll introduce the big bad along with the motivation, and then we'll move on to the actual episode predictions. And I do know that Bryan Cranston has been rumored to play the main antagonist, so I will use him as a reference for the animations. One thing I've learned from watching Dexter is that the main antagonist usually mirrors the theme of the season. Season 1 was about Dexter uncovering his past, and the big bad was his long lost brother. Season 4 focused on family, and Arthur Mitchell was a seemingly loving family man. Season 6 explored religion, and the big bad was a religious killer. So the key to predicting the next big bad is figuring out the theme of the season. And I am pretty sure that Season 2 of Dexter Resurrection will be all about the relationship between Dexter and Harrison. So what other antagonist would mirror that relationship better than another father and son duo? But not just any duo, a father and son vigilante killer duo. And these two guys' motivation for killing people would be that they are seeking revenge for a lost loved one. More specifically, a victim of the New York Ripper. So instead of the Ripper being the main antagonist, he becomes the target. And it would actually tie in quite nicely with what Season 1 already set up.
You sure about that?
Because we know that the Ripper made phone calls to torment the families of his victims, so this father and son could easily be integrated into the story without it feeling forced. And because it's rumored that Bryan Cranston will play the big bad, I feel like he would fit much better in the role of a grieving father turned serial vigilante killer than the New York Ripper. But yeah, what do I know really? This is just some pretty baseless speculations here from my part. But these two guys' frustration with law enforcement failing to catch the killer, combined with the horrifying calls they've been getting, would make them a ticking time bomb, just one push away from madness. And that push comes when the killer's name is revealed in the end of Season 1, thanks to the files found in Prater's vault. Now, they might not sound like bad guys yet, but trust me, once we get into the actual episodes, they will. And by the way, I created this duo by combining two antagonists from the animated web series Dexter Early Cuts, the father and son duo from All in the Family, and the Dexter copycat without the code from Dark Echo. So now that we have all the basics of the big bads out of the way, we can finally jump into the episode predictions. Starting with episode 1. Episode 1 kicks off with a spin on the classic Tonight's the Night, but this time it's Today's the Day. Dexter's first day as a blood spatter analyst for the New York Police Department. And that's right, I think that Season 2 will open with a small time jump, maybe a couple of months. Dexter gets the job thanks to his expertise, and because he miraculously guessed the New York Ripper's murder weapon, and I guess Wallace was impressed by that. And after Batista's tragic death, Quinn and Masuka also joins the New York Police Department to help catch his killer, Leon Prater. Meanwhile, Harrison has joined the police academy, and yeah, I know that that would normally take way longer than just a few months, but it wouldn't be the first time the timeline with Harrison didn't really add up. The police are hunting the New York Ripper with no real progress, and Dexter is hunting for Al, the one killer who got away from Season 1. The episode ends with a brutal scene. A man in a wheelchair is seen beaten to death by two mysterious intruders in his own apartment. Our first glimpse at the father and son duo. Episode 2. The episode opens with the police investigating the brutal murder from last time, the man in the wheelchair. And here's the twist. His name is revealed to be Don Fremdt, aka the New York Ripper. It turns out that the reason he stopped killing people and only terrorized families with phone calls and recordings was because he lost his legs. And honestly, this feels like something Dexter as a show would actually do. Set up the Ripper as the next big threat, only to shock us by killing him off right at the start, to reveal an even bigger threat. Meanwhile, after their first taste of blood, the father and son struggle to adapt back to their normal lives. So I guess you could say that this is truly the moment when the father and son becomes the big bads. Episode 3. The police keeps investigating the recent murder, but Detective Wallace secretly struggles to stay objective because of her history with the New York Ripper case. Meanwhile, the father and son decides to continue their revenge spree, with their next targets being Prater and the other killers from the meetings. But what they don't realize, of course, is that most of them are already dead thanks to Dexter. And to make things even more complicated, the police are also hunting Prater and the supposed remaining killers, also completely unaware that the only one still alive is Al. Episode 4. Now, I think I come up with an okay premise here.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
But I have to admit that I have absolutely no clue how I'm going to pull off this ending in a good way, but I guess we just have to push through. Al, for some reason, decides to go back to New York and murders Elsa. I don't know why, but he does. And this pushes Harrison to want to kill Al together with Dexter. So Dexter and Harrison tracks him down, but when they are about to sedate him with M99, they realize that he's already been killed. The big bads got there first. And when the police investigates the scene, they realize that the victim, Al, was in fact the serial killer known as Rapunzel. Episode 6. By episode 6, the police starts to get suspicious. With both the New York Ripper and Rapunzel dead and no sign of the other killers, they begin to suspect a vigilante serial killer, but not the Bay Harbor Butcher. Because this time the father and son are actually caught on surveillance tape killing Al. Their identities are revealed, and it turns out that they are the family of one of the Ripper's victims, because Wallace instantly recognizes them from when she worked that case back in the day. I think this storyline would solve a major potential problem. I personally love the Bay Harbor Butcher arc, but if we got a third season in a row where people suspect Dexter of being a serial killer, it would feel a bit dragged out. It would be inevitable that the police would eventually connect the dots between the Dark Passenger, the Tattoo Collector and the Gemini, and with Batista's wild accusations against Dexter in season 1, everything would point back to Dexter, and that would be repetitive. So instead, by pinning everything on the father and son duo, all suspicions shifts away from Dexter and the Bay Harbor Butcher to these two guys instead. So all the murders Dexter did in the previous season would just be pinned on these two guys.
You said that.
And since Dexter and Harrison also went after Al together the night he was murdered, the show could use it as a classic Dexter fake-out. Maybe the police say that they have gotten footage of a father and son lurking near the crime scene, and we as the viewers would be like, how is Dexter going to explain this? But then it's revealed that the footage is actually of the big bads. Kind of like when Dexter thought he was caught on camera hitting Matt in New Blood, but it turned out to just be Heat signature footage. Episode 7. By episode 7, Wallace and Oliva finally track down the father and son duo, partly by chance, partly by skill. But Wallace is the only one who actually confronts them, while Oliva waits outside. And because Wallace knows them from the old Ripper case and she relates to them, she actually lets them go. She tells them to take the front door to avoid running into Oliva, but Wallace doesn't know that Oliva has already circled the building and is waiting at the main entrance. The two antagonists come face to face with him, and thinking it was a setup, they panic and the son shoots Oliva in the chest and flees. Oliva dies and Wallace is devastated by what she's just done. And from this moment on, everything changes, because the father and son have killed an innocent person, which means that they now fit Dexter's code. I guess you could say that this is truly the moment where the father and son fits Dexter's code. Episode 8, I predict this episode to just be a bit of a filler, just a way to increase the tension for the last couple of episodes. Episode 9. In episode 9, the father finally breaks. Realizing that they have gone too far, he tries to turn both himself and his son into the police, but the son completely loses it and shoots his own father dead. This is truly the moment where the son shoots his... Okay. Nah, I gotta stop. Oh, that was the last time, okay?
You sure about that?
At this point, the son has officially gone off the deep end. And this kind of mirrors the situation between Dexter and Harrison in the end of New Blood, where Harrison wanted Dexter to turn himself in because he thought he went too far, only this time it's the other way around. Episode 10. Dexter gets the son on his table, but finds out that he is actually under 18, and that's pretty sus. And Dexter doesn't kill kids, but I can't really let him go either because he has shown his face to him. But now I face a bit of a problem here as well, because usually the Dexter finals gives us some kind of twist at the end, hinting at what the next season has in store. Kind of like when Deborah walked in on Dexter killing Travis in season 6. So I just have to come up with something very unexpected here. So what if Wallace had followed the kid to Dexter's killing location, and when Dexter let him go, she kills the kid for what he did to Oliva, and Dexter catches her doing it. Now, I don't know if it fits with Wallace's character, because we haven't got that much out of her yet, and I most definitely don't know what Dexter's plan to let him go would be, but it would make for a shocking twist. So in this case, in season 3, Wallace would know that Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher, and Dexter would know that she killed an unarmed kid. So they would be in a kind of a stalemate. So as you can hear, these predictions are very, very specific. So to increase my chances of being right on at least one of these predictions, I have taken them out of their context and put them here in a list instead, which I will put on the screen. And I will probably have added some other predictions as well that I may have forgot to include in this video, or that I just come up with while I was editing. Would I want this storyline to unfold on my television next season? No, but kind of, okay? The first couple of episodes would be pretty sick, okay, if you ask me. The rest would be garbage, okay? But yeah, that was my Dexter Resurrection Season 2 prediction. Now I want to hear yours, so please drop them in the comments. And then we can all go back to this video in a year or so, and when the new season is out, and see who was the closest. And believe me, it's way harder than you might initially think to come up with a prediction when you don't have any new information to base your predictions on, okay? It will be a challenge, but it will be very, very interesting and fun to read all your theories down below. And I see you in the next one. Bye bye. How do I turn this thing off? I just bought a freaking microphone here. I don't know how to turn this off.